This segment sponsored by Foster Financial.
Losing a spouse is a tragedy that unfortunately so many people face, but it's so important to be financially prepared. So today on Women's Wealth Wednesday, I'm talking to Foster Financial's Vice President, Caleb Doane, about how to have a financial checklist in the event this happens to you. Good morning, Caleb.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. Okay, so this is a subject matter that I feel that is a hard topic.
Yeah.
To face, whether it's someone that's going through it now or just thinking about what if this happens, how do I prepare? So you handle this with your clients. So what would you start off as the first step of advice if someone was to lose their spouse?
Yeah, it's certainly one of the most difficult things to go through personally and also financially. It can have really big ramifications for folks. It's probably the most significant financial thing that happens maybe outside of retirement in somebody's life. And so we want to make sure that we're very well prepared for this. And so we like to think about it ahead of time, make sure we have a plan in place. So we'll spend a couple weeks talking about this. Okay. I'd say some of the checklist items that we have can be broken out into a few different categories, mainly gathering documents, contacting people, and then taking action. And so today we'll talk about some of the documents that need to be gathered in this situation. And usually we think about legal documents first, so it might be a trust or a will. A lot of times we think about financial statements too, all the different accounts that somebody might have. So there's a whole list of things that we start to look at in this situation.
Right. Okay, so these are documents that need to be processed once a death happens or stuff to be prepared perhaps when the spouse is still living so that you can kind of like work together in the preparation process? Is that right?
A lot of it can be prepared ahead of time.
Okay.
So certainly, with wills, power of attorneys, trust documents, the legal side, we preach to our clients all the time, hey, this is something we really need to have in place before something goes wrong, because that's how you can be the most organized and help avoid some of the logistical issues that people can have after somebody passes away. There's some documents like death certificates. Of course, you have to wait until somebody passes away to get those. With death certificates, we often tell people to get 4 or 5 of the kind of official copies that you can get. Just because there are some financial institutions, there's some insurance companies that are going to request that original document. There's a lot of them that are fine with just a photo scanned copy, but you don't want to have to go back and get more. So we'll tell people to get 4 or 5 of those. So that's really the first step is gathering some of those statements. Anytime that a spouse passes away, there's a lot of things that happen with those financial accounts, and that's why it's helpful to have those statements there too. And an IRA might need to get transitioned into the other spouse's account. If there's inherited IRAs, those need to get passed down. Maybe there's joint accounts that both of them are on that we need to transition it over to a single owner. If there's a joint brokerage account, there's a kind of step up in cost basis is what we call it that takes effect there that can impact somebody's taxes. So there's a lot of things that these financial documents can kind of kick off in that process. And as a financial advisor, we try to make that whole transition as smooth as possible. So there's a lot of places where we can step in and we keep all of our clients' legal documents on file. We keep all of their financial statements on file. We're the ones that will call and tell them, hey, drop off a few copies of that death certificate. So it can be helpful to have a financial professional who's involved in this process, just so that the client can focus on grieving, they can focus on establishing their new normal moving forward and not have to worry about some of this logistical stuff.
Right. And one of the things that I think about is making sure that the documents, not only collecting them, but making sure that they're in line with who your beneficiary is. I think people will be surprised to know that their beneficiary is not properly being distributed or they don't have the right person down to receive it. So whether you have a spouse or you have children, making sure that your spouse is your beneficiary and then making that transition after a death happens to make sure your kids are now listed or someone close to you, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We like to have primary and contingent beneficiaries listed on all accounts that we manage. Just because if both spouses were to pass away at the same time and you don't have those contingent beneficiaries listed, then all of a sudden there can be ambiguity as to who that account is going to. So we like to make sure all of that's set up. But then when a spouse passes away, we can move those contingent beneficiaries now to the primary beneficiaries. But if we have that set up in advance, there's not a ton of time sensitivity on it. We can give people, a month or so to kind of take care of the funeral process and everything like that. If somebody doesn't have beneficiaries listed properly, a lot of times it's really time sensitive and we say, hey, we need to get this adjusted right now. So again, a lot of these things are getting stuff set up in advance so that that whole process can be as smooth as possible and someone can just focus on their personal life as opposed to having to focus on their finances. We want to be able to take that off people's plate.
Right. And as we're thinking about the checklist aspect of it, okay, so you say trust, will, financial documents. Okay, what else? What if someone doesn't have a trust or a significant amount of money that they're going to be passing along? What are some basic documents that people can start thinking about now?
Yeah. Outside of those documents that you mentioned, of course, the death certificates is something that somebody would need. And also just any bills that are coming in the mail. Sometimes we'll see that one spouse is primarily responsible for paying a lot of the bills, writing the checks every month, whatever it might be. And the other spouse might not know all of the recurring things that come in the mail. They might not know that, hey, the utility bill comes on this day from this place. And so keeping an eye out in the mail for those things, or the recurring charges on the credit card, is another thing that we help people through. I'll have people send me their credit card statements for the last 6 months, and we'll look through it and say, hey, these are the things that you might think about canceling. Here are the things that need to continue. Here's how you need to kind of adjust bill paying going forward now if someone's taking care of it.
And that's so interesting because now I think about stuff, what if you have a car and you have a title that's in one person's name? Or if you have a, what is it called? If one person is collecting Social Security, there is a way that they're
benefits and
we talked about that before. There's just so many levels to it, so much more that we can dive into, of course, in this conversation, but that's why it's important for people to come in and to talk with you, because you actually have all of this stuff listed out so people can start preparing in advance. You recommend in advance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's you mentioned the cars. You can have turnover on death titles to the cars. So there's a lot of things that we recommend to clients in advance just to make sure that this stuff is taken care of ahead of time, because there's a lot of financial decisions that have to be made in that 1 month following somebody's death. And we want to make sure that no major mistakes are made, just so that people can focus on establishing their new normal and moving on with things. So
Okay. This is a hard topic to think about, the possibility of losing your spouse, but it's better to be prepared. So taking these steps with Foster Financial is what we recommend. So their phone number is listed below to start that process. And I look forward to seeing you after the break.
This segment sponsored by Foster Financial.